Hyatt Clinically Integrated Network, Medical Director of Occupational Health and VP of Population Health at Henry Ford Jackson Hospital, Dr. Courtland Keteyian. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Bart.
Nice to see you. Dr. Keteyian has with him in the audience today a guest. A resident is shadowing you today.
That's right. Yep. Brought my, I have preventive medicine residents that'll rotate with me, and preventive medicine is a public health specialty, which is what I did years ago now. So it's fun to have every year a few residents that'll come rotate with me. And
so do you remember that back in the day when you were just a young medical
when I was
student?
wet behind the ears, yeah. You actually, too? So when I was a resident was when the
here's our
oh, there he is.
resident.
Okay.
Yes.
He didn't know he was going to get TV time. Yeah. So when I was a resident, it was during the Flint water crisis. So we actually spent, and my program director at the time was the medical executive, the chief medical executive for the state of Michigan. So she took us up to Lansing, into Flint. So we were part of that kind of coordinated public health response. It was really a tremendous learning experience. It was a terrible situation, obviously, for folks that are living in Flint, but learned a lot about infrastructure that way.
Well, I guess, as you say, it's just an unbelievable experience, but what an opportunity to be able to...
It was a tremendous opportunity, yeah.
All right, one of the things that I think we've been noticing this summer, the wildfire smoke from Canada, and you can see it, and people have been telling me that, it's been giving them scratchy throat, and they feel like they've got allergies.
Yep. Yeah, there are tremendous health risks associated with wildfire smoke. And I think everybody's known for years, right? Like, there are cities in the world where there's high levels of air pollution, right? And there's health risks associated with living in areas or communities where there's high levels of health pollution. So in the United States, we have the Clean Air Act. And the Clean Air Act defined 6 what we call criteria pollutants, so things that are in the air that the EPA actually regulates. One of them is lead, which isn't really a problem now because it's no longer in gasoline. But then there's ozone, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and then also particulates, so PM 2.5 and 10. And it's the particulates that are issues with wildfire smoke. So they're actually getting very small particles of essentially products of combustion that aerosolize. And the 2.5 is actually the measurement. And a 2.5 particulate is measured in micrometers, basically. And something that small you can inhale it, and it goes through the alveoli into the bloodstream and can be distributed through the body. And those are the ones that are particularly risky. And there's some fairly significant health risks that are associated with inhaling those types of particles.
Is this different than sitting in front of a campfire and breathing that smoke?
It's pretty similar, actually. I mean, it's quite literally smoke from wildfires. Now, the difference, or what can be a difference, is wildfires usually aren't just burning just trees, right? They're burning all kinds of stuff. And so when there's been wildfires, let's say like the big one was in California in the last few years, and all those houses are burning, right?
Paradise.
The paradise, exactly. And so you're burning houses, you're burning cars, like vinyl siding is not designed to be combusted, right? Rubber from car tires, like those things are not designed to be burned and aerosolized. And so it's actually very toxic. So there was a study that was published. It was kind of a review. This was in the New England Journal, which is a very reputable journal, back in 2020. And what they looked at was association between all-cause mortality, right? So how likely is it that you will die, right? Associated with exposure to wildfire smoke. And they actually showed a relationship where for every kind of linear increase, every 10 so if you look at the air quality index Well, you can download this on your phone now, right? There's an app, and you can look at air quality index, and it's on your Apple Weather, right? And you can look at that. That goes in 50 microgram per cubic meter increments. So it's kind of like a concentration per volume, and it goes 0 to 50 is green, 50 to 100 is yellow, 100 to 150 is like light red, and it kind of just like builds up, right? So as that builds up, kind of every 10 unit change, the increase of all-cause death goes up by 2% for every 10 unit change, right? So in a given day, somebody on a unhealthy day like we had this last couple of weeks, where it's like orange, somebody's risk of dying is like 20 to 30% higher on one of those given days,
Really?
than it was on a day with green. And the mechanisms of that are multifactorial, right? But you're inhaling noxious chemicals, which increase risks of cardiovascular events and strokes and lung irritation, right? People that have COPD, like all these other things, if you're just a little bit sensitive, you're pushing people much closer to significant clinical events. So it's actually very serious. Like when we have those days that are like unhealthy levels, people really should be limiting exposure to outdoor air, staying in the house, air conditioning on, windows closed, and if you're going to go outside, doing it with with a mask on. So we're kind of like reverting to like COVID days, right? But like N95 mask, that's what you need to be able to catch particulates that are that size.
So someone with COPD or asthma, their risks really increase.
It's quite measurable, yeah. And it's not something to think about, right? I think we think of it as, I was up north over the last week and disappointed that it was hazy outside and was kind of limiting time that I wanted to be outside. But there are real health risks, foremost to sensitive groups, and sensitive groups include folks who might be older with chronic diseases, but also children, pregnant women, right? So they're kind of in that first group of sensitivity. But then once you get over 150, which is like that orange AQI level, it starts to become unhealthy for everybody, and you really want to limit outdoor activity kind of across the board.
So really it does, typically we respond to things like that, or tornado watches, or wear sunscreen, whatever, but we need to take a little bit more.
We don't usually, myself included, right? I don't think we usually think about it.
Yeah.
And once you start to look at the published risk, right? Like where this has been, it's been studied, and you can actually track these outcomes against like these associated levels of air quality. It's quite dangerous.
I don't remember. Of course, we all remember over the last few years the western wildfires affecting our air, but before that, I don't remember this as being something we even knew or saw.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, right? So I grew up in Michigan, right? And I cannot remember in my lifetime until the last 2 or 3 years having ever even a day, but now it's weeks where there's this haze, and it's almost always attributed to wildfires in either the western part of the US or in Canada. So this is clearly a problem that is worsening, and it's climate related, right? Like there's no question the climate, people dispute what the reason is for climate changing, but the climate is changing. And when the climate does change, forests get more dry, rainfall gets more intermittent, right? It can be heavier, more infrequent, and so the forests are more susceptible to these types of events, and these types of events have significant impact on human health.
All right, well, hopefully we won't be seeing any more days like we have in the last week, but it's likely we will.
Yeah.
So pay attention.
I think there will be more of it than less of it in the future, until we can kind of get our arms around the climate piece of this. Yeah.
The other thing we're seeing more of, which I think is a surprise to a lot of people because we thought it was pretty much eradicated, and that's measles. And I remember measles from when I was a kid, but then it literally went away.
Yeah.
But it's back.
So we basically said in the United States that, kind of like polio, like measles was eliminated. I believe the U.S. said it was in like 2000. And so at that point, any cases of measles that we would get here were being essentially imported, right, from other countries, but we weren't getting de novo cases of measles in the United States. So this year so far, we have about 1,500 documented cases of measles, which is the most we've ever had in the post-2000 era. So it seems like we're no longer just having issues with imported cases now, right? We have, we're getting cases within the U.S. And that has pretty significant implications. Like about 20% of folks, these are children mostly, with measles are hospitalized, which is a huge number. And then the risk of death is about 3 in 1,000. So there's been 3 measles deaths this year in the United States. So it's super important for families with children in particular that are school age to have gotten those vaccines. They're protective, and these are super effective vaccines, like 90+% effective, to have gotten their MMR vaccines before going to school, and to both protect that child, but then also create the herd immunity, which protects other children, because there are other children that may have immune systems that can't tolerate being vaccinated, and they're at incredible risk, and so kind of rely on that herd immunity to protect them.
So the measles vaccine, it's part of the battery of vaccines that a kid is going to get.
It is. Yeah.
It's routine.
Yep.
And
yeah.
you have to opt out of it.
You'd have to opt out. Yep. It's part of the standard sort of schedule of childhood immunizations. That's one of the core ones: measles, mumps, rubella, and that series. That one starts at 1 year old, actually. So very, very important that kids are up to date on those before going to school.
And it's time school about to start, so kids, first timers, they're going to have.
Yeah, it's right. It's right around the corner, and so that's a standing one, right? They can get that at any time. Then there's the seasonals, right? So COVID and flu, those vaccines are updated on an annual basis. And the FDA actually pretty recently approved what is the updated formulation for a COVID vaccine for 2025. And so we expect to be getting those in town here usually like middle September. And so we'll have the seasonal influenza and seasonal COVID vaccines. And the recommendation of those are going to be it's an annual vaccine. Now the government entities have not recommended that COVID be an annual vaccine in children. But we talked last time about what the composition is of the group that is now making the recommendations, which is very different than historically the group that is a group of experts. I don't know that I would call the current group of ACIP experts on vaccine and vaccine information, but it's still an annual vaccine that I would say most physicians would recommend that people get.
Yeah, in fact, the state MDHHS has issued guidance that contradicts the federal guidance.
Yeah.
So, and I know you always say, check with your provider.
Yeah, there's been a number of different organizations, of physician groups that have started issuing contradictory recommendations to what's come from ACIP and subsequently CDC on some of these. And what's happened is the sort of kind of the force of the recommendation gets downgraded from recommended to like shared decision making or discuss with your doctor, which is a very different kind of recommendation to have from the government than this is a recommended routine vaccine.
All right, as always, we appreciate your expertise and your time. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
From Henry Ford Jackson Hospital, Dr. Courtland Keteyian. More to come.